Welcome to another episode of Walk Worthy, and we are here with my friend, the legend, Dr. Jim Cress.
You just gave me a doctorate because I don't have one. I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. So
there we go. That's what. Well, that's what I mean. When I say doctor, I mean if there's someone that I look up to and look to that is doing what I have looked to do in that. Yeah. I believe I want to step into that gap to eradicate sexual immorality within the church, and we know that sexual immorality is not going to dissipate to the extent where it goes away until Christ returns, but I think it's gotten so problematic. Something has to be done.
It's been around for a while too. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I mean, you look at it was etched in caves in Mesopotamia like 2,000 years ago. So not a new problem. Yeah. But historically, what are some of the things that you've seen not really get better and maybe get worse?
Well, we could go down a whole path, couldn't we, of AI and what's going on. Sure. And as myself being a grateful recovering pornography addict, a sex addict, if you will, to use that term, I was creating and doing AI way before AI came around because, and I've seen so many men I've worked with and some women too, that I could take images in and they are stored, right? And we know this in the brain. Yeah. And image after image and video after video, as I was addicted to pornography for years, since age 12. And I didn't need to look at screens anymore. I literally could, with that, and like AI, I could put someone else's face on a body, take an image. My brain would let me far more than a computer could do. Yeah. So I was into that. So now we're into real AI, where people are really quite easily doing that and making pornographic images of people who don't even exist on the earth. Yeah. I mean, literally to create, and theologically for me is be really careful because God is the creator and they literally are creating people, the imago Dei, right? We're created in the image of God. Yeah. It's dicier, plus Satan's having a field day. Yeah. He won't win in the end, we know, but it's a scary day out there for adults and for kids, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, something I've heard recently that were really shocking, especially to young adults or anyone that would know like who Forrest Frank is, one of the top Christian artists in general. He was sharing that he was a virgin, never had any kind of physical sexual experience, yet he found himself addicted to pornography since around 12 years old, and then he gets married, and on his wedding night he tries something that he saw on his wife, and his wife is like, "Whoa, like what are you doing?"
Classic.
And they both begin to weep, and as she asks him, "Hey, where did you learn this?" Yeah. And he was like, "Man, I know exactly where I learned that." And I mean, that's something I'm seeing. There's this, erectile dysfunction, like epidemic happening in young men, and it's because they've got these real images really stored in their mind and these real ideas about what sex should look like. And when it doesn't meet their expectations, well, reality meets chemistry, and something's not happening in their body that should. Would you just speak to that?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to, with what we know about neuroplasticity and just the neural pathways of the brain, or Aristotle saying we are what we repeatedly do, right? You're not going to be able to have those neurons that fire together, they will wire together, and you're literally laying down pathways in your brain toward false intimacy, toward pornography, toward, again, images that aren't even real, but in the moment it will feel real. There's, if people treat pornography mainly about sex, are really missing it because it's about connection. We're wired for connection. Yeah. So give somebody cocaine at age 12, heroin at age 12. And now with all the work you do, kids are getting out even through little gaming devices or innocent YouTube videos, and then something comes in. If we gave them cocaine at age 12 or heroin, you're not just going to cold turkey come off of that. Right. It's all so secretive. We do stay as sick as our secrets. So they've wired their brain toward all of that. And this erectile dysfunction thing totally makes sense because then you go from false intimacy that could have demonic stronghold stuff in it as well. Absolutely. And then here's real intimacy, Hebrews 13:4, the marriage bed's undefiled. That's right. And that night, and suddenly the person's like, whoa, this is Holy Spirit infused, if they're Christians, real intimacy, intimacy. The body there keeps the score. Is like, no, we ain't doing this. Yeah. So it's very much you've practiced with false intimacy all these years. You're not just going to take a step over and go to real intimacy.
So I want you to potentially debunk something.
Okay, I'll try.
And then I want to really just lean into how can we give a lot of people a lot of hope.
Yeah.
So I sometimes have pretty lovingly heated conversations with people that I love and respect around masturbation.
Right.
And there's people who are in ministry that would say, hey, this is something that's advantageous for me to to have resilience or have restraint, or if it's in a Catholic circle to maintain chastity.
Yeah.
Would you speak to that? Like, is that a tool that a Christian leader should have in their tool belt, or is that a gateway drug into somewhere they don't want to go?
Well, yeah, I like the way you put that. That gateway drug is so profound. I've seen it, and being a grateful, recovering pornography addict, I can speak from that from the personal side. So part of the dilemma is, as Paul would say, if we can borrow from Scripture, all things are lawful, but all things are not profitable. To go to black and white thinking, is all masturbation right or wrong? Is I'm going to start with I don't know.
Right.
But what I want to do is to move over here and say, have you had a history of masturbating to porn? I don't ever stop with, do you struggle with porn? Because modern porn, simply with Instagram reels, anything else going out there, for me it was old catalogs mom would have years ago, Sears catalogs, and the arousal template, we call it, what you really like to look at in porn. Mine became, in my journey, lingerie, and to watch that. I didn't need the full tilt pornography, not that I didn't see some of that later. So inside is, as I'm doing that, your good word of the gateway drug, if someone says, okay, I've been, quote, sober, maybe for 90 days or a year, no masturbation, no pornography, and then to go back to it, what I have found experientially, and I believe neurochemically and neurobiologically, you're running a high risk that resets everything. And wait a minute, what are you thinking about? I'm not being legalistic here, folks, but what are you thinking about, or who are you thinking about when you're the white puffy cloud? What are you thinking about with porn? Those images can still be there. And the idea that has been debunked that a man does not need an orgasm every 72 hours. With that is, so what happens if you're on a business trip? Or what happens if you're just anywhere, including single people, and like, wow, I need to have a release. Is there another option? Do you have to have that? And does it reset and kind of draw back up the old, if you'll use the word addiction for a moment, which I think is highly likely. If someone says, look, I've not been sexual at all, or I'm a single person now, and I don't have a long history of struggling with masturbating like that, I still need to have, which you can appreciate, deeper conversations to say, how much are you doing that around masturbation? And what's the benefit? What they'll think, I can't live without an orgasm, and that's just not biologically true, right?
I would agree with that completely. Interestingly, a question that I get a lot, and this is generally like from a 18 to 25 demographic, people who have had a history with watching porn, they're not watching porn anymore, but they're wrestling with wet dreams. Is that withdrawal? Is that what would you say about that?
Well, my actual urologist, right, said, as we were talking through some things, actually a number of years ago, I said, explain to me, because he is a Christian, about nocturnal emissions or wet dreams. And he said, I think that can be God's gift to a person based in the prostate. Remember, a lot of men don't even know their biology.
Sure.
They don't know they can go to, in the old days when you were getting a prostate exam, and the doctor, now they'll do PSA tests, but they used to do where there was an invasive procedure, right? And a guy said, I'm so ashamed I got an erection during that. It's like, we need to reclaim the biology. A man, scientifically, everyone can Google this, gets an erection every 90 minutes during the sleep cycle. That's why he gets up in the morning, and I say, well, when you wake up, get up. And when you get up, wake up. Because they're there with testosterone at the highest levels in the morning. They're there with cortisol levels, the stress hormone, in the morning. But they've convinced themselves that every erection needs to be satisfied.
Right.
So with that is, I think the idea of this conditioning that we've done ourselves, I'm going to ask a guy, and I say shame, by the way, SHAME, is self-hatred at my expense. SHAME, self-hatred at my expense.
I might use that.
You can use it, buddy, anytime you want, please. So God be the glory. But they'll have a nocturnal emission, or we're talking chit chat here. They're having a wet dream, and it's like to shame themselves. And I'll say, but let me investigate. I like to be a little private eye, a kind one.
Yeah.
Have you been? I call it. How you like this word for a therapist? Snacking.
Yeah.
Just taking a hit of lust along the way. If you, Bible, can a man scoop fire in his lap and his clothes not be burned? If a guy says, I can promise you I'm not snacking on Instagram reels or pornography or anything else, that I'll say that can be certainly God's gift that you have. You know, if you need to, minus a major prostate issue, they do exist, then maybe that's just God just allowing nature to happen.
Yeah.
You're getting an erection every 90 minutes during the sleep cycle. Is it really that big of a deal that could happen? However, a guy says, well, yeah, I mean, no, you're going to ask me that, but I've been snacking on porn or flat out looking or watching some sexy movie just on HBO, Hell's Box Office or something. And I said, well, you're just stoking all the fires. That's cheating.
Yeah.
And then you have a wet dream that night, right?
Yeah.
But I want to be gentle, non-shaming, and saying, well, tell me the story. And I want to unshame wet dreams for guys, nocturnal emissions.
Yeah.
But I want to find out, are they stoking fires before that?
That's really good, and that would kind of point to something I encourage people. It's like, hey, the depth of your confession is going to equate to the level of your healing.
That's exactly right.
And it's by saying all of it. Yeah. And by saying all of it, saying, hey, this is the emotion that I felt prior to watching. This is the website that I went to. And, you know, kind of we live in a day where, because of streaming, it's kind of one-stop shop. But then what did you put in the search bar? Because it was in the searching, you can point to a longing. Would you just point to someone just right now, just thinking about, this is what I keep looking at, and I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. Like, is what you're searching for, is that, you know, articulating that to another person? Is that step one towards them finding healing if they've been stuck for a really long time?
Well, often if it's hysterical, it's historical. And I'm amazed at people and everyone listening today. Please go do your story work. Unpack my FIT principle is simple. The facts of your story, this happened to me. A therapist would be good. Talk about that. I is impact. What did it do to me? You can't say what it did to somebody else, because the same sun that hardens clay softens butter. What did it do to me? T is track. What track have I taken? Well, again, what if you've been comforting? Some would say, because we have YouTube videos that show this, they're not inappropriate, of little boys and girls in utero masturbating. That term of its own self is not a dirty term.
Yeah.
It's pleasuring themselves. Or you have your first child and a little boy at 3 months old has an erection in a diaper change. That's not dirty.
Right.
It's biology. So inside is, how long have you been struggling with this? What goes on? And to look at, what are you trying to, fantasy is an escape from reality. Ponder deeper than the sexual stuff. What reality are you trying to avoid? Possibly, because it works. It will numb you out. Brene Brown says we can't selectively numb. If you numb out pain, depression, sadness, you'll numb out joy. You'll numb all of that out. So I help them. Where did it start? Counseling word is etiology, origin. Where did it start? And are you aware of what are you trying to avoid? What I use is BS HALT, triggers of bored, stressed, or shame. Then in addiction field, hungry, angry, anxious, lonely, tired. It spells BS HALT. And I have them to get into that pre-trigger state, as I call it, and they'll say, yeah, before that. When high anxiety, I want to turn to masturbate or look at porn. Depression, sadness, rejection. All the women, if it's a heterosexual thing, the women in porn are saying, come here, little boy. Yeah. Play, boy, play. Just come and let me just comfort you. Or just an Instagram reel. She really wants you. There is a connection these guys are after, usually because they're disconnected from God, and they're disconnected from healthy human relationships.
Yeah. Something that I see over and over again is that someone might have surface level friendships, or maybe they have tons of followers, but when I ask them, like, do you have a person? Whereas, like, I've been, for a decade, I talk to the same person on Friday. We call it hot conversation, honest, open, transparent. And I just, just brain dump, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, such an external processor, I just have to get it all out, because, if I confess when it's small or even something that's not necessarily sin, but just like, man, I'm really finding myself frustrated in this area, and I know that frustration is going to take me somewhere. Something just about saying it out loud is just helpful for me. So how can we take everything we're talking about, and there's so many people struggling with that, and just kind of start with, if you don't have a person in your life, you don't have like a friend. I call it a Proverbs 27:6 person, the wounds of a friend. If someone doesn't, they're not close enough to you to see, hey, Jim, your mannerisms are off today. Like something's like off.
They can read it, can't they?
Yeah, and it's
they
like,
know you.
And you'll say, yeah, I'm good. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna ask you one more time, and we have the relational equity to say, will you actually tell me the truth, or why is that so important, and why is that, in my opinion, a common denominator of someone who's, hiding in plain sight? And how can we help people take, maybe their first step today in the right direction?
Well, Solomon said it, didn't he? There's nothing new under the sun. And this is where I start first. It's not where I linger the entire time. Yeah. Let's go to the Bible. Let's go to theology. Yeah. The Imago Dei, the image of God. We are created in the image of God. Therefore, we are what? Trinitarian in our relationship. Yeah. I didn't make that up. That's what God's word says. Yeah. So that perfect, they even have a fancy word called perichoretic, the neighborhood, just like you were just talking about. Hey, man, we can sit and we can talk in the Trinity. So we're created in the image of God. That's one. Secondly, hey, this didn't start with you and didn't start with me. Yeah. Go back to Genesis 3. Yeah. They thought there was a better way. Adam, clearly passive in the passage, and then he was mad, and men have been doing it ever since. God said, dude, what up? What happened? I held you accountable down there. And he said, it's that woman that you gave me. And men have been blaming women and God ever since. So then they did what? They grabbed fig leaves to cover their inadequacies. Yeah. So the idea is saying, scary to sit and be vulnerable. You and I can already tell. We would have a personality. We would have a style of relating. I'm an Enneagram 7, if you believe in such things. Yeah. That we'd sit down, we'd go deep quick. And some people can't. Yeah. We would begin to say, let's authentically take fig leaves off. So if you just have Facebook, if you just have whatever and you got all these friends, and it's like, no, but do you have one or two? Moses had Aaron and Hur to say, we're going to appropriately not open the kimono right away, but earn trust and begin to share our stories, and then say, always tell guys in accountability, say, hey, bud, good job. What are you not telling me? Well, I didn't tell you I've been doing this. Yeah. You're omitting. You always want to in our check-ins with guys who include the omissions. But I think that piece is, how do you find them? I don't know, pray. Yeah. God, would you bring me someone? Some people go to therapy or therapy groups or celebrate recovery, other things, listen to this podcast and say, I can find one or two. I think that can be more important than 50 guys, one or two, and then we begin slowly to tell our stories, warts and all, and getting to know each other. And as you do that, I think real intimacy begins to happen. Yeah.
And then just thinking about, the David's response in Psalm 51 to what Nathan says to him in 2 Samuel, in that confession, to your point, it's like, man, if you, number one, you need a relationship with the God who made you.
Amen. Yeah.
And from there, if you have that and you still find yourself wrestling with this, and someone loves you enough to say, hey, I know something's up, and I'm loving you enough to ask you again, to the person that's never shared that struggle with them, maybe it's not going to be with a counselor. It's going to be with this friend that they've known for a long time.
Most won't go to counseling. Yeah. You just need to know. Most people are, basically are never going to go to counseling. Yeah. Few will. Yeah. So, yeah.
So how do you receive something like that? Like as a friend who's hearing this thing for the first time, and you just want to help someone. Like maybe someone's listening to this and they're not struggling; they actually want to serve their friend. What is a good, healthy way to listen well and not react, but to respond to what they're saying?
Well, you've said it eloquently there, because when people are reacting, that's doing an action from your past versus, as you said, responding. Yeah. So with this, as you're going in, you quoted, obviously, with Nathan and David. Remember, Nathan is there coming to David, knew what was up. Yeah. David had rationalized sin, probably authority rape with Bathsheba, that she couldn't be a willing participant.
And he cleared his browser history.
Yeah, and he's covered all he tried. Isn't that funny? Yeah. All the stuff he did, and tragic. And he's deep into the narrative with Nathan. Nathan said, let me tell you about this little lamb and all that. Yeah. I am just hopping mad. Thou art the man. Yeah. So I take all the guys I work with in Psalm 51. Is there a brokenness, a contrite heart? Are you willing for someone to be able to speak into your life? And then on the very logical, low-level, friendship level, I just use the, listen and silent have the exact same letters. So what I do is just simply say, hey, Bubba, buddy, yeah, you open to a thought? I use it in counseling all the time. Brain research, if they say, yeah, it's just Revelation 3. Yeah. Jesus, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If you open it, we're going to have some supper. But I'm not kicking the door in.
Yeah.
So I'll say, are you open to a thought? Yeah. I don't know, kind of leaning back like I'm in this chair. I don't want to fall here, right? Yeah. And say, maybe it was this, have you ever thought about that? Because all of us, there's a level I think we need to, at a level, earn the right to speak into people's lives. Otherwise, they'll just blow you off.
Yeah.
So I think, are you open to a thought? Yeah, you know what I've seen here is this, leading with compassion. Com means with, passion to suffer. Yeah. So compassion is, hey, Joe, Bill, whoever, I'm willing to suffer with you and walk with you in your story. But if they open that door and say, I'm open to a thought, then they'll let me in.
That's incredible. I think that's so helpful. So it has to start there. So as we conclude, that's where you start.
Yeah.
But how is it possible? Obviously the answer is yes. But not to ask a rhetorical question, but to ask you to speak into this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it possible for someone who lived a life like me, that we're not just like outliers? Can you walk in freedom? Can you have a healthy marriage? Can you actually step into, sharing the compassion that God has shared with you, with others, in a way where you're leading people out of this darkness? Can you be healed and whole? Is that possible?
Well, I, like you, in recovery, 21 years sober from pornography and masturbation, and it's not because I got old. I tell people that all the time. Don't put that on me. And with that is, I tell people as a vision, we have more help, hope, and healing than you have problems. Whatever you bring there. They're just wanting to know, forget all the therapy degrees, is there a way out?
Sure.
Now, detox is important. Because some people have been masturbating or lusting hardcore since 12 again. Yeah. It's going to be hard to change that. Will you be willing to go through, we let every other addiction detox, to go through that? And will you do Colossians 3? It says, Paul wrote and he said, kill the deeds of the flesh, but give life to what's most alive in you. The Puritans called it mortify and vivify. Don't just be killing the deeds of the flesh, but are you going to be aware that 2 Peter 1:3, you've got everything for life and godliness through Jesus Christ and the Bible, it says. So it's actually far easier to recover and be clean and sober than you realize. You may just not have fully bought in yet.
Amen. I love the way Titus 2 talks about by saying no to ungodliness, you actually develop a new palate. You develop a hunger for righteousness. So in the same way, thinking even about Thomas Kempis, like habit replacing habit. You don't have to just stop doing something. You have to start living.
Because nature abhors a vacuum, and everything will rush to fill it. Yeah. Got to be mindful of that. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you so much for your
my
time.
Pleasure, buddy.
Thank you for paving the way for people like me, and I just appreciate you so much.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for letting me be here with you.